So we're very excited about having this commercialization workshop. This is an important time in our society's life, much like gene therapy and cell therapy has grown up over the past 2.5 decades. I think our society is also reaching a point of maturation, or young adulthood, as I would call it. You know, the past 2 decades has been a lot of hard work in terms of understanding how to do gene therapy or cell therapy. It's been a lot of hard work of understanding what kinds of diseases lend themselves to this important approach. And now in the last few years, we've had, after this long road, the first, what we would say, proof of concept clinical successes. And so what we know now at this point is that we can do gene and cell therapy, and it can have a positive impact on disease. The next big obstacle, of course, is can we get this therapy to larger groups of patients? You know, up to now, they have really been experiments with very small numbers of patients. And ultimately, to have the broadest impact, to make treatment a reality, we really need to get it to, you know, many, many more patients, as well as attract these approaches and apply them to many more diseases. This is where the commercialization effort is critical. So we can think of this as sort of a confluence of multiple streams of development that is reaching maturity for us. On the first note, which we've been doing for 2.5 decades, it's been the science. How do we do it? Can we do it? We've answered some of these questions. The second stream now is, can we attract industry partners to make it a reality for many, many more patients? And from a long history of doing research in the academic arena, we know that to really have broad impact on disease, we need to partner with industry. And so in that sense, this commercialization workshop is really the first major step in our society to really actively engage this process, to bring all of the different stakeholders into the same room and to start a dialogue about what are the aims and the requirements for each of the different groups, so that in fact we can find common ground to move forward to make wider treatment a reality. We chose representatives from what we considered as sort of the key components of what a successful developmental timeline would be in terms of bringing therapy to the masses, so to speak. The proof of concept, as I said, is done, but the next step is, of course, can we attract capital? So this is important because oftentimes in the high-risk world of drug development, and this is the development of a drug, venture capital firms are an important player in that. And so I think that for our membership, we need to understand what venture capital is looking for, what's important to them. And so that's certainly a key player or stakeholder in this process. Oftentimes, the initial partnership is not with a large pharma who actually will move the treatment to the masses. It's often with a smaller biotech startup type of scenario, who are more mobile, who are very focused on early phase development. Because this is where gene therapy is at. It really is still at an early phase development. And so it was critical to also have representatives from what biotech startup firms would want and would look for in terms of the kinds of developments, the types of data that they deem would be successful and be able to translate into a commercialization venture. A big part of that assessment by both venture capital as well as by biotech is, of course, is there intellectual property protection? And that's a very complicated question, especially in the field of gene therapy, because there's so many technologies that are brought to bear. And this is why, again, one component of this workshop and the ongoing dialogue would be the intellectual property component as best discussed by intellectual lawyers and individuals with that type of expertise. Ultimately, we think that if these initial 3 components were actually to be able to come in sync, so to speak, with the scientists in the membership who have the proof of concept and the ideas, then a successful development will ultimately translate into commercialization by big pharma. Because ultimately, they're the ones with the resources who can actually bring proof of concept clinical therapy to, in fact, a wider number of patients. And so that, of course, means we wanted to have a representative from the large pharma type companies. They, of course, will be looking for more mature types of developments. They're not going to look for primarily proof of concept or even early phase. They're going to be interested in something a biotech firm, for example, can deliver close to what would be potentially you know, at the step of a phase 3 type of development program. I think that the Outreach Committee and the Bioindustry Liaison Committee, we both have the view that we need representatives and active participants from these other domains in our society in this next mature phase. And so certainly the next sort of hope that we have that will grow out of activities like this will be, in fact, an integration of these types of talks into the actual regular program of the ASGCT. And we think that is a next step in terms of facilitating dialogue among the different stakeholders, as well as widening and broadening our membership, which is always an important goal of ours. I would add that this next mature phase is completely in line with the strategic plan of the ASGCT, which I had the honor of participating in several years ago. As you know, one of the big initiatives is the development of spin-off journals from molecular therapy. And in fact, these journals are in some way targeted towards this more practical translation of discovery to treatment. And in fact, many of their themes are focused on exactly that, the process of doing gene therapy, as opposed to necessarily the discovery of gene therapy.